And welcome to another edition of Defo on 5 here on 5 Reasons Sports Network. I suppose this is fair game on this platform, knowing the man who started the whole thing, 5 Reasons Sports Network position, about a certain president of the United States, or at least former president of the United States. But, Louis, can we break into a chorus of, oh, happy day, oh, happy day? Yeah, the indictments are starting to come. And this is only the beginning. We're combining a lot of musical entries here out of the great band Chicago Transit Authority. Only the beginning of what it seems like will go on forever. We'll see what happens with this, but yeah, a historic moment yesterday as indictments will be coming down against one Donald J. Trump. Here's what's interesting, and I learned this lesson in my own particular episode with the federal government, which is being accused of federal crime. And ultimately, there's really not much way around it for the average guy because in federal court, and we learned this. Who was the wide receiver with the Dolphins that ended up on federal charges in a credit card fraud case? Remember many years ago, Jimmy Johnson had to testify. They pretty much based his defense on character witnesses. And I actually had the same lawyer that this guy had. And he said that it was an unusual approach he took in court. He said, "You see that man over there?" And he pointed to his client. And who was the guy? He was a wide receiver for the Dolphins. He was actually pretty decent.
I don't know.
And he got caught up in this thing. And it seemed like he really wasn't the main culprit, or, his complicity in this was not necessarily worthy of being charged in federal court. But he had celebrity status. So naturally, they went after the guy. And the attorney turns and says, "You see that man over there?" And he's pointing to his client. He says, "That is the dumbest, basically, motherfucker I've ever talked to in my life. He doesn't know what the hell is going on here." And that was his defense. Said he had no idea what the hell was happening there. But I know I did learn this in that whole episode. I had a friend named Lefty who you might have been able to get a loan from at the track. If you were hurting for cash, it might have cost you 3-4 points a week. Real gentleman about the whole thing, though, Lefty. And Lefty, of course, was the subject of the Alonzo Mourning autograph story, where Polyman and I, my friend Polyman from our many years of doing trivia challenges, and of course was just a friend of mine since I moved to Florida about 40 some odd years ago. And we had to get an autograph for this guy. He wanted an autograph of Alonzo Mourning. He was coming on our show. He was promoting Zoe's Summer Groove. We had a TV show, the same ill-fated television show that led to all of the problems with the feds. And so morning comes, and we have him sign a basketball, and he says, "Who do you want it, autograph to?" And we were very reluctant to approach Alonzo because at that time he really hadn't sort of turned the corner from where people thought of him as, not exactly the most friendly of sorts,
It
right?
was friendly. Zoe
Yeah.
was one of my idols growing up, and he came to the studio, and I tried to talk to him, and he was not talkative at all. Like he was not.
He actually, was very cool this day, and so me, Louis, I'm not the type that's going to go running up to a guy and say, "Hey, could you sign this for me and my kids or whatever?" I probably should have done more of that in my lifetime. I would have a remarkable collection of stuff, but of course, you know me, I leave everything on the floor, just gathering dust. Anyway, so Alonzo is very amenable, very agreeable to signing this basketball, and he says, "Who would you like it signed to?" And the guy that was asking us for the autograph was a guy named Lefty, who happened to have some connections and was a big time guy at the racetrack there, called a race course, always holding court in the clubhouse dining room, and very very likable guy. I mean, this was not a guy that you were intimidated by. He was very approachable and very friendly, and so we had the ball signed to Lefty, and we couldn't be happier than to be giving this basketball to Lefty from Alonzo Mourning. And we give him the basketball, and he looks at us with a look that you would have thought he was going to order that we would get whacked right after that, and says, "No, not to me. This was for my nephew." So Polyman and I actually went to a tattoo removal place to try and get two Lefty taken off the ball. And we eventually presented it to him. But he did give me a great piece of advice if you're ever involved in anything that is maybe somewhat unscrupulous that could lead to any kind of a jackpot. And he's holding up a cell phone, which was relatively new at the time. And it wasn't one of those brick ones. I mean, they'd already come out with the flip phones. And he says, "Worst rat in the world right here, the telephone." And maybe old Donny Boy is going to get a little dose of that. because the indictment apparently forthcoming with like 30 counts,
Like
which
34
is
counts, something
yeah,
like that.
that's pretty insane. It
Like,
seemed to me, I mean, this case was probably the least important or significant of all the different stuff that has happened.
that he's
'Cause
done in his life and he's done during his presidency and since, yes,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. I mean, buying off the silence of some porn star who he had an affair with, you would think he was more inclined to do that, not necessarily because he was going to worry about tarnishing his reputation as a potential presidential candidate, but because his wife was going to kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Very understandable from that
Any
standpoint.
dude, I was gonna say, what dude wouldn't do that?
Right. Okay. So to him, 130 grand obviously is like you paying off somebody 200 maybe to, say, hey, listen, no matter what, I don't want Shirley to know about this.
Mhm.
I'm sorry I did it. I mean, it was a wonderful time, but here's the money. Just don't say anything. Sign this agreement. But I mean, when you look at what happened with all of these Republicans now are screaming, "Oh my God, how could you do this? This is ridiculous. It's a travesty." But they're the same guys that are screaming about law and order and that nobody is above the law. So if nobody's above the law, this guy will have his day in court, and if he's innocent, he's innocent. Well, what are you going to do?
Well,
Unprecedented to charge a former president with criminal activity, but you know what? That doesn't mean that it should never happen if these guys are guilty of what they're doing. And then you look at the Trump inner circle with Manafort and Roger Stone and Steve Bannon. All these guys have been sentenced to prison, and he pardoned them all, but he didn't pardon the one guy that probably was going to be the most damaging to him, and that was this Michael Cohen guy.
oh,
And guess what? Cohen took it personally.
yeah.
And who knew more? I guess. I mean, over the years, since 2007, this guy has been, like, taking care of all of these problems that Trump had and making sure that he was out of the loop, untouchable. Elliot Ness, and that's the last guy you would think you would want to get angry. And he let him rot away in prison there. He got out pretty early because of, I don't think he served much time because of the COVID thing. They were letting loose all of the people that were in there for relatively minor offenses compared to the others. And, sure enough, the guy did, I don't know, what did he do? Like 6 months in prison? I'm not even sure how long he was in. But he came out flaming mad and seeing red. And right now, I mean, he is very much seeing red because he's going to see the wrath of the entire Republican Party. But I'm surprised how these people are scrambling so quickly to Trump's defense, right? Even your boy Ron DeSantis is like, well, this is a politicized, ridiculous charge, and it's fueled by the Democrats and this Soros guy. I don't know that that's the case. You know what?
Oh no, that's
If the guy's innocent, I'm sure that'll come clear in court. No, it's not like
it's
they're going to convict this guy of a crime, if the evidence is flimsy. So I would imagine that this is a jackpot that Donald Trump did not want, even though he's beating his chest saying, "Yeah, well, this is going to rally."
I
That's
wouldn't
it,
rally
Donnie.
people.
You're done.
Who I don't know if he's done. Who knows? Because we're in a really,
Oh,
really
he'll keep going. I mean, and the people. I mean, who has time to go stand outside Mar-a-Lago with a Trump flag based on something? If this case is so stupid, then what is everybody screaming about? I don't get it, but it's happening now, and it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing proceeds. But I mean, he's in much you would think, all of these telephone calls that he made, with the lefty theory, where he's literally intimidating a Georgia election official, saying, "Well, you know what? If you don't find these 11,000 votes, it ain't going to look so good for you. Your career is in danger here, my friend."
yeah. Like who
He's
cares?
on the phone with Zelensky saying, "Listen, I don't care what happens there. You know what? If Putin starts bombing you, that's one thing. But could you get some dirt on Hunter Biden for me?"
Yeah, like what a lunatic.
Lunatic, man. Always on the phone, always opening up a big mouth, and always making himself
Well,
look
it wasn't
really stupid.
subtle. He's such an egomaniac that he just assumed. 'Cause look, he got away with massive crimes that were out in the public eye. Like every business the stuff he did with the fake university, the stuff he did with the meat company, like he did all the stuff that was scummy and criminal and out in the public eye, and he got away with it. So he just assumed, all right, I can just be a douchebag and do whatever I want, and I'll get away with it. That's what I don't understand with these people coming to his defense. I get it. It's political. What's funny is whenever the Republicans yell stuff, it's always the stuff they're doing. This is a political theater. No, this isn't. What you're doing is, oh, you're taking the stuff with the guns. This is the wrong time. Actually, no, this is the right time.
Oh,
Like,
by the way, that law passed in Florida. You're banning children's books, Ron DeSantis, but every clown
oh, to just
can
have a gun,
carry a gun
go
at
back
this
home.
point without a permit. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That'll help the situation, I would think. I mean, you know what, Libby, you should start packing some heat just in case you run across a problem. I think your first instinct should be to shoot somebody.
I
That's great.
It is gonna go well. I've only shot a gun once in my life, so that's what you want is me with a gun in the public, just shooting at
No
people.
training, no background check, no nothing. Just go out there, get a gun, and stick it in your pants.
You can
Try
do
and get it through the airport.
whatever party you want. It's just weird to me to like scream and yell, "This is a travesty!" It's like you're not even saying anything specific. What's the
Nothing.
travesty? Where is the travesty here? Where they've searched into him for years. Like you think they're just coming after Trump willy nilly? Like come on, like
The last thing you would want to do is bring some frivolous case against this guy
exactly.
in criminal court. So unless you knew you had the goods, you would have to think that the last thing on earth you would want to do is give this guy yet another springboard to express his martyrism and the fact that everybody's coming after him. But the bigger thing, I mean, obviously, would be the January 6th deal. Which from my opinion, whatever it's worth, I mean, completely complicit. Stood there on a podium, told everybody to run down to the Capitol building, stood back and watched when any word from him to stop this, and they were ready to stop.
It was like
So I mean, and was reveling in it as this was going on, while everybody else was in a panic, and cops, were getting killed. People were getting killed. What was it? 5, 6 people died
yes.
during this insurrection, and just the scene itself was a disgrace. I mean, it looked like a banana republic out there. This is not the kind of thing that we were accustomed to seeing in the United States. Anyway, I mean, that's going to play itself out, but we'll see what happens. And it's the first, I think, of several
Well,
cases
that's
that Donald Trump will have to be deflecting away, and probably the most minor. So maybe that's a good place to start. See if you can get by this one, and we'll see what happens with the Georgia elections and the January 6th thing, and the business with the documents, which he kept saying, "Hey, you got them all," and was fully aware that that was not the case, and actually authorized and suggested to his own attorneys, a parallel to the Michael Cohen thing, that they lie on his behalf and sign affidavits to the effect that, you got them all. That's it, knowing that that was not the truth. Unbelievable. All right, opening day yesterday, and wow, typical. No, of the Marlins
very
coming up
much.
a little bit short. They lose to the New York Mets. They had the race on the mound, Sandy Alcantara.
They look like shit.
A lot of empty seats, Luby. A lot of empty seats.
Yep.
Should that not have been more than alarming if you're Bruce Sherman and you were looking at your bank accounts today?
I
A
mean,
lot of empty seats for opening day against the Mets. The Mets were holding rallies here in town. As we mentioned, I mean, they were digging up deceased Mets and putting them on display at the Hard Rock with the guitars and everything else, right? Casey Stengel's corpse, I think, was actually wheeled out at one point to help the celebration get going.
it was
And
it was Mookie Wilson and Keith Hernandez, guys that haven't played in over 30 years.
right, trying to get the Met fans excited to invade
South
Lone
Florida.
Shark Park, speaking of lefty, and come in there and root their Mets on, which, and that's always weird. I know it's happened before here. It happened, I mentioned it a few times, when the New York Giants were playing the Dolphins, and the Giants scored, and I happened to be in a position where I couldn't see what was going on. The stadium literally was shaking. I was in the bowels of what is now Hard Rock Stadium, working my way back up into the stands, and the building starts to shake. I thought, oh, Jesus, an earthquake in Florida. And I'm thinking, well, the Dolphins must have scored. Marino must have tossed one 98 yards to Duper on the opening play. And this will be one of those plays that'll be featured prominently on every sports show that you can see. That it was a spectacular play today. And sure enough, I look up on the scoreboard, it was 7-0 Giants. Oh, only right? What was that? Only in New York. Jim Morrison said it. Where the guys are rushing the stage. Only in New York, my friends. And the Mets, they're supposed to do well. They got Robertson in there for Diaz. I'm not sure, that Robertson is the same effectiveness. Obviously not as Edwin Diaz would be, but they're going to try and make do with that. So they did make some kind of a move to shore up the loss of their closer to the World Baseball Classic. A good, powerful lineup. Alcantara on the mound looked good for the early innings, and then got touched up for a few runs. And Jim Sarney, our good friend Jim Sarney, we often mention, who wants me to address the whole thing with Paul Maurice, the French Joe Philbin, who finally said something to his team after 75 games. Hey, you guys are playing like pussies.
Yeah, the last game. It was the last game.
And now they've won 2 in a row.
They've now won 2 in a row, and they're playing. It's what we've waited for from the Heat all year, and haven't seen any fucking life. That Panthers are actually showing a little bit of life here. maybe in just the nick of time.
Inspired by this, rant by Paul Maurice, at least according to Jim Sarney. This was the thing that triggered it, which is possible. But the question would be, what the hell were you waiting for? They were
That's
playing like this all season. It wasn't like they were lighting up the league and all of a sudden had maybe a 5-game losing streak and you had to snap them out of it. They've been in this malaise the entire year where you were wondering what on earth happened to this team.
they were 100. Did they win 114? Have 114 points? I don't know. They had some ridiculous amount of points last year. They're at 83. Like, can't you tell the difference?
Yes, and as we've said a few times, after pulling off one of the most remarkably lopsided trades in South Florida history, where the South Florida team actually was the benefactor.
Yes, or it seemed. I mean, as good as Kachuk has been, if your team takes a step backwards, then how good is the trade? It was good on paper, but what did it do for the team? I mean, I'm not.
Well, would have to have done something. Can imagine how bad they would have been if they still had Huberto.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And he played like shit, like he has so far this year for the Calgary Flames. But that was a whole other matter. But I did want to address that. I don't know. I mean, your thinking is, why didn't he do this in training camp?
Yes.
If you could see or at mid-season, coming back from the All-Star break, whatever. I mean, you waited till Game 75 to open up your mouth and tell Ekblad that he's playing like a wimp.
Yeah, exactly. Ekblad's literally fallen off a cliff. He went from being like the best defensive player in hockey to I didn't even know if he. I thought he was still hurt.
Unbelievable. All right, so the opening day, a bit of a disappointment there. Cooper, a home run. Sarney was saying that, wow, look at that. Last year's team wouldn't have come back like they did. They immediately coughed up. They tied the game up in the sixth and coughed that situation right back up by giving up 2 runs in the seventh, and that was it. And then we're very meek from that point on. The Yankees, I was reading an article by that guy, C. Coward Jackson, that I mentioned, writes for Action Sports, and is usually dead wrong about every game that he selects, although very eloquently written and logically done. But, in terms of giving you a winner or a loser, it's almost always a loser. So he had written a pretty extensive column about how it's going to be almost impossible, which you would have to imagine. It is not going to be easy since it only happens like once every 37 years where somebody makes a run at 61 home runs. Now, he hit 62 to have the American League record last year, and this guy's contention was it won't be easy for him to repeat that accomplishment.
No.
So what does he do? First at bat, home run.
Yeah.
Dead center field, 425 feet or whatever it was. The Yankees prevailing yesterday to the delight of many. Garrett Cole, 10 strikeouts in the game. Think about this, Lubie. You're talking about the speed of the game, and I guess they're delivering the pitches a little bit faster, and time has been shaved off the length of what were otherwise dreadfully boring baseball games where it would take 4 hours to complete. The only thing more boring was the last 45 minutes of $1 Million Baby.
I knew you were going to go there.
When literally you were screaming at the screen for Clint Eastwood to just put a pillow over Hillary Swank's head and say, "Let her die already." I mean, it was Terry Schiavo to an exponent of 1,000. Only it was in film. But in that game, the Yankees ended up winning 5-0. There were 22 strikeouts by the starters who both only went 6 innings. So think about that. Of the, what would that be? 36 outs. 22 were by strikeout across the first 6 innings of that Yankee game yesterday. I mean, is that really, going to turn the fans on? This is what is most detrimental. They tried to do the top 10 web gems yesterday on ESPN, and they only had 2 plays because there were only a few balls in play. It's true. 2 great catches, but that was it. Those were the only fielding plays on opening day. Pretty remarkable. Although Reyes made a really nice play at second base. And it was great to hear Tommy Hutton on the telecast there opening day. He really made the whole thing go. Well, unfortunately, the Marlins lose that 5-3. Dusty May is supposedly going to stay at FAU. That's the latest rhetoric, that they're going to offer him some kind of lucrative long-term deal to keep him around. And, you would have to think that maybe he was coming back next year for some kind of substantial pay increase. But that was not going to be a long time before Dusty May, after what he did this year and in general with the program, before he was at a big-time Division I school. We'll see what happens with that. Final Four coming up on Saturday night, going to be a lot of fun. And we'll have our review of that for you on Defo and 5 on Monday. And let's hope that we're looking at...
Let's go Canes and Owls. Let's go.
I mean, is that the way this ends up, Lumi? What do you think? I'm
Oh,
thinking
no, I think
no.
we're supposed to
And
lose.
we were lucky to see one of those teams make it, FAU being the more likely. But how can you discount the Hurricanes after what they did to Houston and Texas over the past weekend?
I'll be rooting them on, and I wouldn't bet against them, but my lean is against them. I mean, I at some point these runs end.
I think UConn has like 2 7-footers they can throw at them also.
Yeah, I don't know. I picked against. Got Miami to the 16s, and then I picked against them the entire time. I had FAU through the 32, and then I picked against them the entire time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing that. I shouldn't, but I am. Like I just.
It's probably a good omen for the two teams that we would both think that they're both going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to do the outthink myself. Like I really feel like at some point these runs end. San Diego State took Alabama, and it was decisive at the end of that game. And UConn has demolished their opponents. Like at some point, and neither of these is juggernaut, so that's why I wouldn't bet against the Canes or FAU, but I wouldn't bet for them.
Yeah, I mean, if the Canes are on their game, obviously, like you could say, it's cliche, they could beat anybody, but I mean, they really can. If they're on their game and they're running the ball and they're scoring, I mean, they're putting up a high volume of points in virtually every game, and they continue to do that. FAU is facing Brandon Lang of Two for the Money fame. Pointed this out to us on our Believe podcast yesterday, and that is that San Diego State defends the three as well or better than anybody. And FAU's strength is a three. So this is going to be strength versus strength from an offensive and defensive standpoint. And they have remarkable numbers defending the 3-point shot. So if FAU can overcome that, certainly they're in there with a chance. It's not like San Diego State was blowing away everybody. And I'm going to hope that there's some serendipity with the Hurricanes. And if they're getting multiple guys that are making shots, including Nigel Pack from the Coke machine, you have to consider that they'd be in there with a chance, no doubt about it. And Jim Larinaga certainly seems very confident, doesn't he? I mean, you didn't see his lip quivering there like Paul Maurice going, listen, Ekblad, you suck.
No, he believes in this team. Like he believes wholeheartedly in this team.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you later on this morning in a few minutes, actually, going live here with the Defo Show. It's a Degenerate Friday. We'll have our handicappers coming on, including Mark Lawrence and the professor with the big board. Also, the Greek's been red hot, riding the back of FAU. And Mike Mayo, the Gambling Gourmet, all going to join us on our show. And that's on South Florida Live. You can catch it there. And certain segments will re-air later on 5 Reasons Sports Network. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and that's today's edition of Defo on 5.